Okay. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome again to my audiovisual channel. Today, I bring you episode number 8 of A Conversation About Art, during which I try to find the meaning and purpose of both art and beauty through conversations with colleagues in different artistic fields. This time, I will have this conversation with Lauren Redding, a draftsman whose main medium is the masterfully old and wise silverpoint. Lauren has kindly had me in her studio's podcast 2 whole times. The studio's name is H&R Studio, and she co-owns it with her husband, sculptor Brett Harvey. These 2 conversations were blissfully all about drawing and will both be linked in the video description. So Lauren, thank you so very much for your time, and please introduce yourself and tell our listeners and watchers who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, first, thanks, Gabriela, for having me on. It's always awesome to talk to someone who's as pumped about drawing as I am.
Right?
And also, my apologies in advance to your audience because even though it's 2 years after 2020, I've never mastered where to look in Zoom.
Oh,
like
yeah.
at the thing, so if my eyes look like Skittles, my apologies. But as Gabriela so beautifully put it, I'm an artist, and I don't know, I wouldn't even say as something as broad as an artist. You're right. I'm a draftswoman. I make drawings. I'm pretty adamant about that. And I also am a writer. I do arts writing, and I'm based in Southwest Florida. Like Gabriela, I went to the New York Academy of Art for graduate school, lived in New York for quite a while, and then moved down here. And I run a studio with my husband where we have weekly open drawing, we teach workshops, and we make our own artwork. So it keeps us on our toes. But silverpoint is very much my primary medium, even though I've started making really big drawings now, which aren't on silverpoint. So I've had a lot of stuff happening just over the last 6 months or so that's heralded some pretty big, positive, organic, inevitable changes within my studio practice. Though silverpoint still remains the core of it.
Okay. So these bigger drawings that you're talking about, what were you using to draw on those then?
I was using hard pastel, ink. Man, Faber-Castell makes the most beautiful India ink pens and markers, and acrylics. I was using a lot of golden high flow acrylics, and I was making these drawings on Duralar, which is pretty fun. I don't know if I particularly even enjoyed like the plasticky feel of Duralar's surface, but I liked how receptive it was to different media, and I liked that I could work on the reverse of it since it's translucent. So I had to make a lot of big drawings relatively quickly. So I just bought like rolls of Duralar, and since it is like a polyester film, everything just like races across the surface. It's so fast, which is such an opposite point to something as like fastidious and exacting as silverpoint.
Okay. So how were you? I mean, there was paint and ink on the Duralar. So was there any fixative involved?
Yeah.
Oh, what did you use for fixing then?
Oh man, and they're not even paying me to say this. Like, I'm not even. This is not even an advertisement. I used the Golden's spray varnish, the Golden spray varnish, and man, that stuff is really good.
Wait, Golden what?
Golden spray varnish. They make a matte, they make a gloss, they make a. This is interesting for me because I used to make drawings on panel for years. So just over the last year have I really started getting into like paper, Duralar, that sort of branch of drawing, which I think is how most people kind of get into it. I just came in through the opposite end. And man, that golden spray varnish is pretty it's pretty durable stuff. I'm a little clumsy, so you know, I may have beat up the drawings a little unintentionally, and it can withstand quite a bit.
That's really cool. What did you say you were drawing on before? Sorry, when you started?
I drew primarily on, and this is, for all the vegans and vegetarians out there, I'm sure it's sourced humanely. I would not want to hurt bunnies, but I used a traditional gesso on panel, which involves rabbit skin glue. And honestly, I think that is by far my favorite surface to work on. Something about I love drawing on a really hard drawing surface, but again, as much as I enjoyed the Duralar or something like Mylar, there's something about a film or composite that has a certain, I don't know, it's kind of that plastic quality of it is so tangible from, like, it's like the princess and the pea, like the tiniest little bit of that texture is really felt. I almost felt throughout my whole arm. So I found a lot of attributes in those materials, something about a really, no pun intended, solid substrate, like an MDF or a good like birch plywood panel with a super brittle but resilient gesso that also when sanded nicely feels almost silky. Something about like the precise tip of a stylus on that is just, to me, there's no equivalent. There's absolutely no equivalent.
And you would do silverpoint on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I can totally see how also the sound would make like cradled. Also, like if you were to cradle the panel and then, but the wood itself, like I can imagine the sound that, the metal stylus, like when you peck at it with the tip would also, and like dragging it across the surface, like that kind of hollowish sort of sound that it would probably make. I can imagine all that stuff, like all that sensory.
Yes.
It's ASMR now, like all that sensory ear stuff now. I can imagine that would be very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, no wonder I miss it when I'm working on other supports, but it's just funny how I go from like the super anachronistic like Cennini-esque substrate to Duralar. And something that's very technological, something that's like very resolutely like space age, which is kind of why it works given the content and the subject that I'm depicting with it. And that's kind of the, it's really important to me that people realize there's a lot of people, oh God, Gabriela, I can go on tangents forever, so stop me if you've got to. There's a lot of people who get into silverpoint and they want to use it for like the novelty of the medium, and then they quickly have a reality check and realize that if your draftsmanship skills are not at a certain level, it's not going to be particularly enjoyable. It's going to be quite humbling. So I don't use silverpoint for everything. Its attributes, its qualities really have to have something, they have to parallel something of the content. So like literal tiny nuts and bolts in like metallic corners that you have to get into with something like a spacesuit are kind of perfect for a metal stylus. And vice versa. And then something like this very technologically developed polyester film, again, very like pre-space age, is also kind of ideal for the same subject content. But it's weird because what I've been doing seems so incredibly different. Like it seems like I'm really this pendulum, like radically swinging from one extreme to the other in terms of like materials and things like that. But in my own little, to me, there are certain connecting points that make sense, and when you see them all hung up next to each other, they don't look that different. They do aesthetically share more.
It's still cohesive.
Yeah, they do look pretty cohesive.
Okay. All right. So, what draws you?
I love that.
I wrote it and I really wanted to say it anyway. What draws you? What draws you to silverpoint, and then what then drew you to? Besides maybe like the scale, because you're saying about the bigger drawings and the consonance of that, with the Duralar being able to withstand that better. So like, your first boyfriend or whatever is silverpoint, but then what draws you to that, and then what made you kind of turn towards the other stuff that you use for the bigger drawings in your in the show?
Okay, so like Bumble is silverpoint and Grinder is Duralar, maybe. I know. I'm so well versed in either. I'm such a dinosaur. Well, the thing about silverpoint is it kind of does go back to that that pendulum-like quality, in that it's so fastidious, it's so exacting.
Why is it fastidious? Why do you call it fastidious?
Because you really are relegated to like the tip of the stylus. You really don't. You can use there's certain things you can do to create like blurring or smudging, or maybe remove some lines. Like there is some flexibility with the medium, but ultimately it is just kind of like you and that little stylus, and that line, that really, really fine line that it produces. So you have to be hyper aware when you're starting a drawing just of what's going on. Honestly, I don't find it that different than ballpoint pen in terms of being aware of like line weight, placement.
Yeah, I can see that.
Things like that. So you have to kind of, I don't even want to say you have to exert all this control when you start a drawing. You just have to be hyper aware and hyper focused when you begin a drawing, or at least I do. And then again, this is all just me. This is all purely subjective. Once you finish the drawing, that pendulum moves from this place of assumed control to an absolute loss of control, and that drawing is going to tarnish, it's going to evolve, it's going to get warmer, deeper. So your preconceived idea of what was a value range might be out the window within a few years, depending on your environmental conditions. And everything about silverpoint is kind of going from one extreme to another, again, subjectively for me. In terms of its characteristics. Again, that's something that can be so demanding, can also be, when it comes to the rendering, so cathartic. Something that can look so ephemeral and delicate can be so rigorous in the discipline it instills. I don't mind that it really kind of, again, swings rather radically for me, rather than settles someplace comfortably in the middle.
Okay. And how do you, I don't know, deal with, I guess, the change in appearance that silverpoint is going to have? I mean, you yourself in your practice, when you make your drawings, are you thinking about what it might look like in the future when the material oxidizes, or becomes like, it changes color practically? When looking at it, I mean, do you think about that in terms of like how you treat the value range and all of that stuff on the surface?
No, I'm not that good at multitasking. So I always, it's well suited to my nature, because I tend to over fixate on what's directly in front of me. Like a lot of the challenge of just me existing is remembering that adage, like, gotta see the forest. You can't see the forest for the trees. Like, don't fall into that trap. So I've got enough going on when I'm drawing in the present moment that I don't want to say I couldn't project what it's going to look like, but it just might be, again, a little bit too much sensory overload in that moment.
To consider that while you're making the work.
Yeah, and the thing too is each drawing kind of does do its own thing. Like, I used to live in New York in an apartment with radiant heat. Drawings tarnished a certain way there. Now I'm in Florida. It's rather humid, no matter how much you have your AC on. Drawings tarnish a different way here. So it's kind of, again, and I think it's healthy for me to just be like, it's going to do what it inevitably does. And usually I find the tarnishing to be a bit of an asset, because the value range for silverpoint is traditionally pretty limited compared to other drawing media. So anything to kind of pump that up a little bit is not, it's not a bad thing for me anyway.
Why is the value range of silverpoint? You mean that it's not super high? It can't go super high?
No, I would say it's like a 2H pencil, maybe.
Yes. I thought you were talking about money. It's the art world. It doesn't even matter. Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. But that's actually another thing I wanted to ask you about. It's like how, I mean, you're used to it because that's your main medium. But how do you calibrate or juggle with the limited value range of the silverpoint? Do you have to complement with something else, or you just deal with it and just like use the value range it'll give you, and then that's it?
I do a lot of things. So the thing with silverpoint, for anyone who's never used it, is you never just take a piece of silver and start drawing on like a bare piece of paper or panel. You do have to coat it with like a gesso or a ground. You have to prepare it. And what I found is that like doctoring certain gessos or grounds can really help. Like something as simple as adding a little bit of bone ash can help because it creates a little more abrasion.
Interesting.
And I mean, this is all anecdotal. I have absolutely no background in art conservation or science, but yeah, I think something about the abrasion, even on a super microscopic level, means that there's more like surface, like it's almost like you don't want the silver to sit on the surface of your ground or gesso. You want it to like etch down into it. And if you have a little more abrasion, and your stylus can really like almost cut on a microscopic level a tiny rivulet, that each line is a little rivulet into your gesso or ground, that seems to be better and yield a deeper value range. And also, again, just like going over stuff over and over again, going over the same line over and over and over again. Like almost incising your drawing surface more than anything. And that's kind of interesting because I've done some dry point etching, and I find that working with a burin on even like a cheap acrylic plate rather than copper is a very exaggerated caricature of what it feels to me to be drawing with a silver stylus on a well gessoed panel in particular.
Okay. Yeah, like the aspect of a silverpoint drawing changing over time also does resemble ballpoint pen, in that the ballpoint pen ink also over time fades. I mean, it depends, but it's just a matter of time. It's going to fade unless you protect the living shit out of it, and just not have it exposed to the sun or something.
Yeah.
And also it does have, what was the thing? Never mind. Okay. I totally, whatever. Okay. Let's get to the pith of the matter.
Okay.
Miss Redding.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me, what is art in your opinion?
Okay, so I do have a bit of an advantage because you've had a few episodes before me. 7, right? I'm number 8?
Yes.
So I've been able to cheat a bit and go through and listen to what the other artists have said.
That's perfectly fair.
Yeah, and they've answered the question beautifully. And I think it's every artist you've had on has touched on a different facet of what art is. But I want to take this as a moment to redeem myself. When I was an undergrad, I had matriculated as an art major right before the art department started switching from a more representational to a super postmodern conceptual installation-based program. And they were very much of the painting is dead attitude, And so I remember I had a very staunch definition of what art was at that time, and it was very authoritarian and it was very reactionary, and art was to me just like drawing the figure, and anything else, even Rothko, and since then I've been able to step back and look at the art world maybe with a more objective lens, and I spent a couple years working as a security guard at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I needed the health insurance. I'm not cut out for that kind of work. But it was great because you would get to look at everything when there weren't people in the galleries. And I got moved around the museum a lot. And I can never get over how much I reference that job, that experience, because as you know, the Met's collection is encyclopedic, it expands millennia, it expands everyday objects to, again, more modern like video pieces. It really runs the gamut. And so I think, was it Max Perkins on here who said, like, if art is everything, art is nothing, or if art is nothing, art is everything. And I think the thing I've realized is, over the last 100 years, kind of starting with Marcel Duchamp, there was, again, kind of that, and I know this is something you're very well versed in. You know a lot more about like postmodernism as a philosophical and cultural movement than I do. But again, there was a very destructive rhetoric to it. Like, the intelligentsia was going after all these sacred cows, and it was so very reactionary. And again, it kind of created this paradoxical art is everything or nothing kind of attitude. And since then, the art market, because, living in the 21st century, I don't know, it's much more romantic to think of art as this esoteric, nebulous, inherently human phenomena. But I don't know if we can necessarily divorce that from the mechanisms of the art market anymore. That's just the era in which we live. I think it's just kind of unavoidable. So what's been interesting for me, even though at one point I was so staunchly basically against anything that had been made after 1920, like when I was an undergrad and rebelling against this great change in the art department, I now look at it and I try to be very even-keeled about seeing, not just discounting that artwork, seeing the rise of a secular art market as well, and then all of a sudden noticing how artistic movements were much more crystallized and reactionary. So, the thing about art to me is, while it can encompass so much, and while its definition has to be so broad, it can be both subjective and objective. I do try to be sensitive to the real-time pragmatic natures of the world and the art market in which at least, my own work may exist, and what that is. And what's so interesting to me is how the figure and representational art is starting to kind of trickle back into our consciousness, not just in terms of a low art level, but in terms of high art also. Like, again, I live in Florida, so I was at, some of the fairs in Miami in December, and I was amazed at the amount of what you would call like more representational artwork. So I think for me, like, what art is it's kind of like a many-headed chimera that's always, it's a monster that's always kind of shifting, but if you can kind of control that monster, be aware of that monster, anticipate that monster, it can be a beautiful monster. It can be a beautiful, beautiful nemesis, if you work with it rather than against it. And geez, I took like notes too when I was watching the other episodes. Where'd they go? I have really messy handwriting. I also liked what Alex Suka said about art as a visual way of solving a problem. And that's probably something that would relate to a lot of what I saw at the Met. Artwork from all over the world that served a lot of different purposes. And it's interesting to see problems being solved in a way that are visual rather than relate, or at least have another sensory experience as their priority. So as tangential and all over the place as that was for me, and even though I prepped with like notes and everything,
pretty cute. That's pretty cute. Gotta say.
Yeah, it's that's kind of where my head has been at. And I think I'm always going to be trying to answer that question. I'm always going to be trying to do like the Janus thing, looking backwards and forwards at the same time, like seeing what art has been and trying to anticipate what will be, and like, you know, just hope that I can make something decent in the present moment while all that is going on.
Okay. Okay, so then what problems does art solve?
I think I think a lot of art tries to use the poetic as a way to solve problems that are pragmatic. You know, like you have, you know, and I'm thinking now of a lot of like something as simple as a decorative object. You need a vessel to hold something. Well, you want to make that vessel beautiful. You want to make it so that, you know, those few seconds a day you're interacting with that object, elevate your daily experience somehow. So you're trying to take something that's kind of banal and elevating the experience of looking or touching it. You know, that's kind of how I see it. And then now, you know, we live in a time where, you know, I think about how like Leonardo da Vinci designed sets for theater productions and fortress weaponry and things, and how, you know, art was, how do I explain it? The same mental and creative gymnastics you had to go through to produce a piece of art was needed in all areas of innovation for so much of human history. Mm-hmm. And now we've had a lot of separation between those various fields and pursuits. So now a piece of artwork's pragmatic need might be someone's desire to emotionally work through childhood trauma or something. Mm-hmm. And the piece of artwork that they create is almost like a cathartic means of venting or therapy for that. So, it's, man, I'm tangential. I forgot what your question was. Sorry.
The question was, what problems does art solve?
Yeah. I think a way of acknowledging whether good or bad innate human impulses that could also be innate human needs. Mm-hmm. So, and I have to apologize to Gabriela because I'm so like, you know, if I start pulling you in different directions, just like be like, hey, you know.
I mean, if I feel the need to, I mean, I'll try, I guess. But because I also I don't like to be. I generally don't care about being interrupted, so I try really hard not to do it unless it's like, unless we're like short for time or something. Then I'll be a bit more aggressive about it. Yeah. But no, I mean, thus far I feel like everything you've said is relevant, really.
Oh, good.
So no worries at all there. Okay, so you seem a little bit more tolerant than I am about things brought about by postmodernism and modernism, and I mean, really, I wouldn't say that I'm well versed, but thank you for thinking that I am.
No, you are.
Well, it's just, I mean, you know, things don't just come out of nowhere. They always have a reason for happening, and not a precedent necessarily, but it's like, you know, they have reasons for happening, is what I'm saying. There's a reason and another reason before it, and then another reason before that, and this. So, you know, I in the previous episode with Rachel Drennan, I mm-hmm. mentioned the positive, what I consider to be the positive aspect of postmodernism and all of those more recent art movements. And it's mm-hmm. It wasn't just an art movement, but the fact that it allows us to do whatever we want as artists. And it's like, if you mm-hmm. want to be a really punctilious studier of the figure with silverpoint, and really, or if you want to really get into the tradition of the atelier and then be an atelier person, or if you want to make invisible sculptures and make music that no one can hear, and you want the ambience to be the music, we all can. There's room for everyone. And it's like, it's kind of, in a way, I suppose, it's the price that we pay for that freedom. If we kind of, I mean, if there's like a little bit of reverence or more respect, I guess, at least on my part, for the more disciplined, more studious type stuff a little bit. Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I would not care. It's like to this day, I'm not crazy necessarily about all the type of study that the atelier is famous for example, that they do the cast drawings over and over again, the painting studies. I mean, I did not want that when I went to the academy, and they weren't doing that anymore. I mean, I don't know if they ever had that style of study before, but like, for example, the thesis was very different before, because I know a person that graduated like in the 90s or the 80s or something, and her thesis was one painting where she could demonstrate that she understood perspective, the figure, color, and all that stuff. And it's like I had it's like I had perspective as a mandatory class for drawing, you know, as you know, for drawing majors, and I wanted to fucking kill myself. Okay, I did not like it. So I'm
Even
just
with Patrick Connors?
I didn't do Patrick Connors. He was not available my semester, which is another problem because the guy did not help. I hated his guts. Okay, and it's like he didn't do anything to me. Sometimes I just have this reaction to very few people. Luckily, it doesn't happen very often. Anyway, the thing is that, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry, I went on a rant.
Oh no, actually, I agree with you. When I was at the academy, I was there from 2009 to 2011, and if you wanted that kind of like technical experience, you could find a faculty member, adjunct, probably more so, from whom you could receive that. So it really was very. They were very accommodating and flexible. They did a really good job balancing, you know, encouraging a certain contextual and conceptual growth while giving you whatever technical tools you need to pull it off. Like, make sure you knew the rules before you break them, kind of thing. And I think like a few of your guests before and yourself were acolytes of Dan Thompson.
Oh yeah.
And I respect the shit out of everything he does, but I agree with you in that I don't know if I myself would have done well in an atelier setting, even though, again, like I said, when I was an undergrad, I was staunchly reactionary to all the postmodern stuff going on, and I probably would have like dove headfirst at an atelier if one had been around. But I think back now, knowing my drawing tendencies as I do, I realized something about silverpoint, and this is something that I articulated, though I'm not sure if I did to the best of my ability, in a podcast that I just recorded before this, talking to George O'Hanlon from Natural Pigments about silverpoint. And the thing about silverpoint is you have, again, a limited like value range, not price, but like actual like
Thanks for clarifying, because I need clarification.
Light to dark, and then you are relegated to a relatively small utensil to make all of your marks. So the thing that I've realized about silverpoint is the drawing does kind of inherently flatten itself out. It can easily get kind of graphic and almost looking a little photorealistic, because you can't modulate edges quite so much. But what I realized is the more I've drawn with a medium like that, where everything gets a little bit more flattened out, the more I remember the drawing classes I took with Harvey Citron, who was the head of the Academy Sculpture Department at that time. And he really pushed these concepts of each part of the body as being likened to a geometric shape. You know, Noah Buchanan did the same thing beautifully. And how these shapes move forward and recede backwards in space. It wasn't just about, and again, the Barg method, the atelier way of drawing, works so beautifully for so many reasons. But what was so beneficial about taking a drawing class with a sculptor was that it was not about copying inherently flat shadow patterns or making very linear envelopes. It was first about draw your ellipticals so that you can see the back edge of what you're drawing, even if you're not going to render it, even if you're going to render over it. Like,
know where it is.
Yes, man, volumes. And what I find with silverpoint is you're so dependent, or at least again I want to be open about how subjective I am. I find myself so dependent on cross contour lines. So if I draw something that's cylindrical or square, you know, I try to get all my mark making to wrap around that form. And even if the drawing still looks a little bit flat, I can imagine it would look a lot more flat if not for trying to approach that drawing in silverpoint sculpturally. So I try to envision myself almost as like, try to look like you're copying a bas relief or something than like shadow shapes in front of you. Mm-hmm. And Dan talks a lot about structural anatomy. As you know, Noah talks a lot about structural anatomy. Their drawings look very different from Harvey's, but Harvey's a sculptor. It's all about structural anatomy. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think just, you know, I mean, even to this day, I can't remember like the names of every muscle or bone, but I remember like geometric masses. And this is what I work on myself. I still try to do a lot of life drawing. Geometric masses moving forward and backwards in space. And that's not a super popular teaching method. I give all of them credit for trying to reinforce that because that's not formulaic. That's not something you can do like break down, first step, do this, you know, like envelope the figure, then put in your shadow patterns, blah, 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 blah. No, it's really situational based on what you're trying to draw, which makes it a little more abstract to convey and communicate. But Harvey, Dan, and Noah communicated that with aplomb, and the caliber of their work is sheer proof of it. And I've been out of the academy for over 10 years now, and man, those concepts really have like sifted their way up to the surface of my brain. Sorry, I've gone on this tangent with you because I know, like, you know, you like drawing, so
I do. Okay, so I want to ask you more stuff and still like stay within the time. But how do you, you know, with, or what I perceive from what you were saying when I asked you what art is and just the conversation in general, you know, I get the impression that you're more tolerant of the results that modernism and postmodernism, and well, according to the handful of Wikipedia articles I was reading, all the way back to the Enlightenment, you know, certain things. I guess I just wonder, you know, because when I see things like Jeff Koons or Damien Hirst and stuff like that, I just immediately get angry. And it's just, I'm just saying that it's difficult for me to, like it is in other situations where I have a reaction where I just get angry immediately. It's really difficult for me to be like, all right, first of all, why are you angry? And just like stop being angry and then think about other things that I could be thinking about regarding the subject. But then I guess I just wonder, what are your thoughts about seeing this type of work, postmodernist work, and work that, you know, Jeff Koons or, you know, Barry X. Ball, I mean, Yigal, I mean, all of these people have other people make their work for them. Like, they don't even touch their thing. They just go there and, like, whatever, for example. Or, like, Damien Hirst, and somewhere I read that he thinks that just having an idea is art. Or what, like, very postmodernist type stuff, you know? And it's like, I mean, you know, so, like, how do you reconcile, I guess, or what are your thoughts when this work gets shown right next to a piece of paper that Michelangelo used a million times because paper was not as easy to come about as it is now, for example, for, you know, like, because he was studying, he wanted to understand something or whatever, you know, something that's done carefully with thoughtfulness, with care, with I don't know, love, respect.
That's so interesting, and I did write something on my notes about, you know, how over the last 200 years the solution to the visual problem is typically reactionary, whereas before it was more of a natural evolution. And I think in getting to that, firstly, regarding my tolerance for postmodern artwork, some of it is just kind of part of me emotionally. Like, I was in an environment that was very authoritarian, and I chafed in a way that made me react with the exact same attitude that I didn't like. So just kind of
Is that what reactionary means?
Yeah, so like
Okay.
kind of for me, at least talking about my own personal journey through art, I don't want to have that kind of staunch reactionary authoritarianism towards other forms of artwork that I
Mhm.
did not like when it was imposed on my own.
Yeah.
So some of that is just me just trying to not be a hypocrite,
Yeah.
because at one point I was a massive hypocrite.
Okay.
Regarding what you're talking about, again, with art and kind of going back to my notes, it is kind of inevitable, I think, over the last 100 years that art movements, again, it goes back to that pendulum. It's
Mm.
just reactionary, swinging away from what was an extreme before. And while some incredible artwork has been made from that, I think that comes from a slightly more destructive attitude rather than a constructive one. Whereas,
Mhm.
like, if you look at the procession, like how art evolved coming out of like Siena in the 14th century, then moving to like early Renaissance Florence, into Mannerist art, into Baroque art, into Rococo, it doesn't seem as reactionary as much as it seems kind of a predictable
Like the
evolution.
logical next step.
Yeah, and my main thing, at least within the confines of my own practice, is I want the progression of my studio practice to be organic rather than just reactionary. I want it to be constructive rather than even the slightest bit destructive.
Mm.
And that's just for me, myself, and this kind of goes back to some of my overall philosophies in life that apply to a lot of things. And that if I want to have the breathing room to do that, I don't want to infringe on someone
Yeah.
else's breathing room to do that, even if I don't like what they do or
Mm-hmm,
don't
mm-hmm.
agree with it. And when it comes to people like Koons and Hearst, who have these big studios, Peter Paul Rubens had a lot of people working for him. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
true.
there's a lot of rabbit hole like questions regarding even the most technically prolific and skilled artists throughout at least Western art history might have used very different tools and methods had they been born now with, access to
Mm-hmm.
different setups
Yeah,
and
yeah.
materials. Um, so in a way, I try not to, it's not even that I try not to judge what those artists do. I like to pay attention to their careers because I think it's good for me to be aware of, again, what's happening in the art world writ large. I was kind of talking about how I think, anymore we have to be aware of these things. We can't quite separate ourselves from them.
Sure.
But on the other hand, I just kind of want to stay in my own lane enough that I'm just like, I'm going to keep trucking with what I'm doing. And then
Yeah.
if they're doing that over there, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, fair enough. Um, okay. All right, so, um, why don't you tell me what is beauty in your opinion?
Ooh, that's another good one. And I don't have any notes for that. Uh, I think, oh man, maybe beauty is like the ultimate subjective sensory experience. I mean, it's, and you'd mentioned Brett Weinstein previously, and how he's, as an evolutionary biologist, he talks about certain things we respond to,
Mm-hmm.
the difference between like beauty and hotness in women is like primordial as that sounds. There are certain evolutionary reasons for why certain things pique our interest.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a book. Okay, so my whole, like, so much of my studio practice is like all these books and things I want to read, but I need to get around to them. So I haven't read them. So I can't like provide a really fleshed out take on them, but I have an idea of what they're about, which is why I want to
Yeah,
read them.
yeah.
And one of them is called The Art Instinct by Dennis
Oh, Roberto
Dutton.
mentioned that, huh? The art instinct, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he talks a lot about like the evolutionary biological reasons for why we respond to like beauty and certain images. And I think a lot of it goes back to like, as we evolved from cave people or whatever, we want to see images or signifiers, writ
Yeah.
large, of of security, of protection, something like big, wide, leafy trees in the middle of an open field that signifies to us like shelter, right? Like people like landscapes and stuff with every, so I think beauty is probably something that's so inherent on what a single individual has been exposed to and what their own preferences are, both via nature and nurture, that I would like probably run and hide in a corner before try to answer that question fairly on behalf of, I don't think I could answer that for other people.
Well, no, it's the what it is to you in your opinion. Although, I don't know if you, I mean, anyway, Roberta Osti mentioned that very book, and it makes it really makes a lot of sense. I also agree about the balance or the relationship rather between nature and nurture. I also think that there is a pretty marked nature programming, I guess, or whatever, wiring. That dictates a lot of what we do. I mean, I'm fine with that. Yeah. I have no problem with that because it's like it's a mechanism that's been polished, that has continued to be polished throughout time, and only the most efficient type thing, or generally the most efficient type thing, is what has stuck around. So it makes a lot of sense that many of the things we humans consider to be beautiful or attractive or hot or whatever it is, are things that will want to just in general help our survival, aid in our survival. And not that I've seen statistics on this, looked up statistics on the subject or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if landscape, for example, was a really, really popular subject that that sells a lot in paintings or anything. Because I mean, I think it'll hopefully, or I kind of expect that it'll be a really long time before that connection between the human and nature is severed. I mean, it'll take a lot of I think it'll take, first of all, a lot of time and a lot of tinkering with it on our part, interfering with it on our part. Because let me tell you something. I mean, I consider myself a city girl type person. Okay. And I never went like camping, or I mean I did, but with school trips, that kind of stuff. Like I'm not a super nature girl or anything. But one time, I went for one weekend, just one weekend, 2 days, to just I went with a guy that I was seeing at the time to the archipelago of San Blas in Panama. And those are a bunch of little islands, and the islands are the homes of families that own the island, and then they receive touristy type people that want to hang out there, and they have barely any electricity. They have like the one bulb so you can get to the bathroom if you get up at night or something. But otherwise, like your hut and stuff does not have any electricity So I experienced that thing about getting up with the sunlight and then going to bed with the sun down for just 2 days, and then when I got back home, when the sun was going down, I was like, oh my god, I have to hurry. Okay, so what I'm saying is, so that's what I'm trying to get to, that like the wiring for that stuff is pretty serious, that it does not take long for it to kick in, and it's like it took 2 days for me to just already start feeling that, I don't know, sync, that rhythm, connected rhythm with the sun up and the sun down, and I was like, wow, that is awesome, you know. So it really makes sense that a landscape that's beautiful, or that is welcoming, or that it looks where you can look for shelter, and there'll be water there where you can drink your water and hunt for animals and stuff. Like, it makes a lot of sense that we have that tendency of liking that imagery, because we have that connection in our wiring, and just make the immediate connection of survival, beautiful survival, because survival, and also that's actually another thread. I mean, it hasn't necessarily come up in all of the conversations, but definitely it has come up at least once or twice, or more than once. That the person that who I ask what is beauty in their opinion, they associated with nature. And I just that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. That at least it's part of the definition, or at least one of the characteristics. You know.
Yeah. No, I had someone recommend that I read Lucretius's On the Nature of Things, which goes into Epicurean philosophy, which was a supposed counterpoint against Stoic philosophy. But
what was the Lucretia thing? Sorry, before you.
Lucretius. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. On the nature of things, and he kind of argues that, like, to summarize from the bit I've read so far, is that we deduce conclusions logically by our sensory experiences interacting with the natural world around us. So it's actually incredibly skeptical of religion and kind of collective moral systems to a certain degree. And I'm reading it because someone said this viewpoint seen through the lens of visual arts could be really, really interesting. And I'm wondering, you know, if it would, if I were to read, and I'm tentative speaking about it because, again, like, it's not, this is one of, like, I've just started reading this recently, and there's different translations of it, and, you know, I'm trying to, like, read different translations of it because I'm not our friend Daryl Babatunde Smith, who's great with languages, and I'm aware that, you know, in translation certain things get lost and whatnot.
Right.
So it's
different translator catch different things.
Yeah, so it's taking me a minute, but I wonder if some of that would dovetail with the Dennis Dutton, Brett Weinstein kind of, even though this is purely a philosophical vein of thought. It's basically someone theorizing, you know. But if some of what, at least the more Epicurean school of philosophy, which again argued about, you know, how we take in information through our senses and the natural world around us, I wonder if those are theories that would be upheld by, like, more modern evolutionary biological discoveries.
Yeah.
So this is like my idea of beach reading, which is why I don't get around to it that much. So.
No, I mean, I bet they would totally find lots of points of convergence. Because, for example, like with the Brett Weinstein thing about the hot woman and beautiful woman, according to the hypothesis that he was trying to talk to Joe Rogan about, a man will be attracted, you know, on average or whatever, for different reasons to a hot woman versus a beautiful woman. So, like, that insinuates that it's a really elaborate and developed system of attraction, or, like, what, even more reasons, all kinds of reasons to try to get the individual to reproduce, so they to continue to perpetuate themselves and for the survival of the species. That makes sense. It's interesting because I joke about with my husband, like, when we first met each other, when we first started at the academy, like, I was 10 pounds lighter, I had long hair, and since we met, like, I started sleeping with a mouth guard, like, I wear glasses most of the time, like, it's not that I don't want to be attractive for him, but certain pressures kind of gave way over time. I grind my teeth really badly, so the mouth guard is, like, kind of non-negotiable, you know? But, like, if I were first dating him, I would have been in a real conundrum had I needed it at that time about what to do. But, you know, it is funny how certain, I don't want to say, like, a certain level of familiarity has replaced, you know, other inclinations in terms of liking how the other looks. But now I just talk to him with my mouth guard, and I'm like, you know, it's kind of mutually understood. I don't know. I kind of, or at least I personally, and, you know, maybe you as well, like, I have always liked the idea of that kind of intimacy, where seeing somebody like that is a privilege, you know. And I mean, now that I'm married and I'm in a relationship that is healthy in a way that I never could have dreamed of, and that didn't even know existed until I met my husband. I don't know. I enjoy more so like that type of intimacy. It's I mean, it's kind of corny also, romantic and stuff, because like, you know, you're in bed in the morning and you smell each other's morning breath, for example. It's like, even if it doesn't, you know, even if it doesn't smell super nice or anything, it's like still that's theirs only. And only you get to share that with them. So it's like, you know, Ricky Martin, the singer guy, has a song that I know. It's okay. So I mean, maybe you can tell me what the song is about, because I only know the title of the song. I have never bothered to listen to it. It's called Private Emotion.
Oh no, I don't know that one.
Okay. But anyway, I think I saw like the end of the video on MTV when it was MTV or whatever, and then I was like, yeah, Private Emotion, and it's like, that's what that is. And it's like, really, I mean, I think, in my opinion, being able to experience those things of another person is really, I don't know, somehow more, you can't get more intimate than that, you know.
No, and I think that's why, you know, I've only maybe drawn my husband once or twice, you know, and I think some of it's because it's almost like, if I were to draw him, would I want to hide that drawing? And I'm not someone who's like shy about hiding my work, but it's almost bringing too much of personal into,
I can totally see that,
into what I do. So it's kind of odd because neither he nor myself really depict the other, and neither of us are offended by that, you know. And it's an interesting phenomenon. That makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense, that you wouldn't want to, I don't know, like maybe if you did end up making a drawing of him, that you wouldn't want to show it, for example. But you know what happens to me is that, you know, I mean, I have painted my husband once or twice. Painted, huh? Yeah, I did. I painted him. Yeah.
It's just funny. It's just funny because, like, I you know that I like to dig at painting, just, you know, playfully.
I wondered when I mentioned Duralar too. I was like, she might have said something about hating Mylar once.
Yeah, I didn't care for it, even though the drawing that I made on it, I really like it and everything. But you know, it's cool. I mean, I totally understand why anyone would. You know, it's probably not gonna go through the deterioration that paper does. You know, where it turns yellow, and it's a very long time or whatever it is. But
that's true. I did think about that a lot.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, I can completely understand why somebody would like it. But you know, what actually happens to me when I think of trying to depict my husband, whether drawing, you know, in drawing, is that I'm not sure. I mean, the things that I really, I mean, I enjoy all the facial expressions, but like the things that I would like to depict or something just happen when he's talking and moving.
Yeah.
I do like it when he's just like focused on his computer and stuff, you know, that's great and everything. And I'm like, I sneak a look and when I'm walking by and stuff. And drawing that would all obviously be nice, but then what I have an urge to depict is like certain things about facial expressions that he does while he's in the middle of a vent or a rant or just talking about something that he's excited about, you know, like that type of stuff. And it's like, I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna draw that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like something that's so
fleeting.
It's like how to translate such a beautiful but primordial emotion into something tangible. You know, it's kind of, especially when it's got these super the connotations of that emotion being associated with your partner. It's always interesting because we get a lot of questions about what it's like to function as an artist couple. And our big rule is like, you never give advice to the other without it being explicitly solicited.
Yeah.
You know,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, again, and it's that same thing there. As much as I love spending my life with this particular person, there does have to be a certain line. There are certain circles that I don't really want creating a Venn diagram in my life that much. There's already enough, by virtue of us sharing everything about our domestic life, there's already enough about my identity that's intertwined with his. My art is something that's so precious to me, that was around for me before he was, that the last thing I want is for my relationship with him to consume that. of mine also. It's like that's kind of my last battlefield in which I can kind of swing the sword by myself, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how else to describe it, you know, and so I'm just glad that I'm with someone who like is not offended by,
Yeah, yeah,
you
no,
know,
for
who
sure.
gets, yeah. And he'd
Yeah,
get it
and
even if he were like an accountant or something. Even if he weren't
yeah.
an artist as well, he would get it too. But it is um it it is an interesting conundrum, and sometimes I do wonder, you know, I just hope that my, again, as much as I love having him in my life, that my artwork would look the same pretty much regardless of whether or not I were with him.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think this is a really great place to start cutting it off. We have hit the hour mark.
Sorry.
No, are you? No, I was gonna say it's cool because it didn't seem long at all. Because as I
No.
mentioned with Alexander Sukas, it's like time flies when you're having fun, man.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yes.
yeah, it's this is I like it. Um, so well, and well, you're a busy person, and so I think I mean that last part there, I think the also a form of intimacy in a way, like the relationship between the artist and their work, the practice, their drawings, like that kind
Yeah,
of stuff. That's like its own thing, and I just really
it
like that as
is.
a closure type thing. So, well then, thank you very much, Lauren, for joining me. I would like it if you told our watchers and listeners where they can find your work and what are you up to lately, and please say everything you want about this badass solo show of yours.
Oh, thanks. I'm on Instagram at lauren.amalia. I have a website at www.laurenredding.com. And I have a solo show of my artwork up at Pensacola State College in Pensacola, Florida, until March 11th. And that's why those big Duralar drawings came into existence. I was given the most amazing opportunity. Thank you, Elena Plowdry. And I realized when I was looking at like a layout map of the gallery, I was like, oh my God, those are massive walls,
Oh my
massive
god, I fill
walls.
it out.
And I, you know, I don't, I'm not a fast I don't draw quickly. So you know, it was a show where, because of the nature of the space and what I wanted to do to fill it, the journey was as serendipitous as the destination was appreciated. And I was able to push myself technically to make like multiple 12-foot long drawings using mixed media,
Damn.
and really, again, diverging in some ways from my usual silverpoint drawings, but work that seems kind of work that is analogous, honestly. So I have to thank Elena and Jason Pinkard, the gallery coordinator there, for lighting the fire under my ass to
That
start
is what we
making a
need
lot of different
sometimes.
work. Yeah, very healthy. And thank you again, Gabriela, for having me
Yeah.
on here. And thank you to your previous guests, because as I'm number 8, I could kind of you know, take notes on on all the amazing things they said, and hopefully give them a little credit along the way.
Yeah, of course. All right, that was lovely. So thank you, Lauren, for joining me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your
Mm-hmm.
words and your thoughts. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Feel free to let Lauren and I know what you think of this conversation in the comments section. And I also invite you to subscribe to my audiovisual channel because I have more of these conversations planned. And I invite you to like this video and share it with all your friends and frenemies. See you next time.